social media sometimes villainizes managers that give role expansion without pay. But sometimes the role expansion is a launch pad to justify for your next bigger growth, right? So be open-minded and know where the intent is coming from. You actually need to have a very positive and strong mindset, growth mindset, to override that. So mindset to evolve ourselves, lead our teams, and lead the organization is very important. Second is a strong sense of self-identity. I know very firmly who I am, who I stand for, and what matters to me, right? My personal purpose, and I can share here, is to unlock potential in individuals, in teams, and in businesses. And that helps me so much because as long as my work every day allows me to serve that purpose, I'm very happy, right? And the money just comes along, or titles just kind of come along with it. And then the third one would be believing in the collective we and really caring about collective success.
Welcome back to another episode of Wise and Shine. I'm your host, Dawn, Budget Babe, joined with Alex, my co-host.
And I'm Alex Low. You can find me on social media, Alex Low, Growth Mindset Coach.
So Alex, today we're talking about a topic that runs contrary to what most people talk about and believe in when it comes to their career. So for most of you, you probably have heard the mandate by now that most people tell you and advise that, hey, you should probably switch your jobs and hop every few years to get a higher paycheck, to get better chances at promotion. But today on set, we're joined by two guests who have basically done the opposite. Actually, I should also be a guest because I've also stayed really long. But yes, before I go into my story, our guests are more important. So with us on set are Shelly and Yinn. Shelly, could you introduce yourself to our audience?
Hi, I'm Shelly. I am a business marketing consultant in the paints and coatings section while dealing in the construction sector.
Hi, I'm Yinn. I'm from Hitachi. Today, I am the CHRO of Hitachi Asia, the regional headquarters.
All right, so Shelly and Yinn, could you share with us how long have you been in this same organization for your career?
Well, starting for myself, my longest lasting job actually took 13 over years.
Wow.
Yeah, at Nippon Paint. So that's why I can claim that I'm a paints and coating specialist. Stayed long enough to acquire all the product knowledge.
For sure. And Yinn, yourself?
18 years and 9 months in Hitachi. So my age is showing. So
you don't even look like you've served 18 years yet.
And this is actually my 8th role.
In the same organization?
In the same broader Hitachi. So I've moved across Hitachi group companies. I've moved from R&D to HR leadership roles in EPC, engineering, procurement, and construction, to the digital side of the business, and then now to the regional headquarters. So I've held both regional and global roles, and it's been shaping, each pivot shapes my leadership style, my thinking, and how I show up at work.
Well, I guess it's also related to the different managers or direct reports that you've had, right? Mm-hmm. Have these roles or 8 roles always been in Singapore, or were you relocated as well?
They've always been in Singapore because of family commitments. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Wow, 13 and 18, that is really long. How many of you guys can actually claim that long in your own careers? Like, I can't. I thought I was long, but haven't hit 13 and 18 yet.
Okay, then I guess I would be the one that has had the shortest stint in the different...
So you're the job hopper here on
Well, my first job, to be fair, was 8 years, so not too bad also, right? My first job as a teacher. You know, the song, Should I Stay or Should I Go, keeps ringing in my head now. But anyway, I think there was a question from a guest, right, audience that says, can we please define or qualify, what does job hopping mean, right? Is it 2 months, 3 months? Is it 1 year, 2 years? So in your opinion, also as a CHRO and Shelly for yourself as well, what's your definition of job hopping?
And I think there's no one standard definition today, but typically I think maybe 1 year or less, or even 2 years. And I would define job hopping as just purely for financial gains.
So you sit in the HR role where you assess candidates based on their CVs and resumes that come in through the door. If someone basically shifts roles every 2 years or so, it's actually considered long by Gen Z and millennial standard, but would you see that and define it as job hopping?
I think we need to go deeper than just the resume, especially in today's context, as you've mentioned. If there is a growth in terms of skills, relational capital, and that's a trajectory, I think we're open in terms of the tenor, right? But that's it. I mean, we all like fast food. People like fast food. It's quick, convenient, it's easy, you get instant gratification. But exquisite meals take time. Quality takes time. Relationship takes time. And building true capabilities really take time. So it really depends on what kind of role you're hiring for.
Mm-hmm. And Shelly, what about yourself? What would you define as the period to be considered as a job hopper?
Well, I interviewed many candidates, to hire the juniors. And it's between entry, that means they are fresh graduates, all the way down to having a few years of experience, as a senior exec or maybe assistant manager. So if I see someone within, say, 3 years of their career and they have like 2-3 jobs, even if they can substantiate well, and even if I see that there is certain aspects, their skill set that makes sense, it is related to the role they are about to enter in my company, but I still have certain hesitation. Because to me, that means maybe the candidate's thinking is not as mature. He or she may not have known exactly what they want to do yet. So for me to bring in is very high risk for the company. So when I define job hopping, while I agree with the whole description, is also to understand a little bit deeper the candidate's the so-called thinking, the motivation behind it. If it's purely for financial gains, I think it will work in the short term. This one I definitely agree. But long term, are you truly learning? Will you eventually be able to contribute? It's something that I find it very difficult to justify.
Okay. So it's
But
like,
to be fair, right, it's hard to determine whether or not someone left and job hopped for financial gain. They certainly wouldn't tell you that on the resume, on the interview, right? So how would you really know? They'll probably come up with some colorful stories of, I had a toxic boss or health reasons, personal reasons. So how would you really know what really drove them to leave?
I think when it comes to HR, there are certain methods, I suppose, when it comes to checking the references. But coming from myself, without having to go through my HR, it's very much psychological. It's the way you ask the questions. I never ask direct questions during interview. I never ask them, why do you choose to leave your last job? I will ask them specifically in, how they contribute to the job. And if I can sense that they are reluctant, they couldn't, give me in details, it kind of know that, they didn't sit long in that job for reasons that is probably, beyond them. That means they're just not interested. Then in that case, I also wonder, when you enter into this interview, are you, already prepared to take on this job? Yeah. So I have to use my own judgment. Intuition do come into play, but then that's where I have my fallback to HR and say, can you do a reference check, just to make sure that the character of the person, fits exactly the motivation or why they want to job hop or choose to, apply for another job.
So if I could add on to that, so when we interview for roles, there are the individual contributor roles and management roles and leadership roles. So for the purpose of this discussion, I'll focus on the leadership roles because that's more demanding, right? What I would look for, because interviews is just one time, you're absolutely right. You can't really, you can only take what you get at face value. Good questioning, like behavioral assessments. So you give them situations and how they handle it. We typically look for leaders who are running towards something and not running away from something. Because I think being resilient, adaptable, of course, if it's a toxic environment, that's a different story. But being to adapt with an organization's evolving needs, that is part of a quality of a leader. And these are some traits that we actually look out for. Yeah.
So then you're actually turning the push into a pull kind of a factor, right? Because I'm looking for growth, therefore I want to move. So you talk about deep skills that can only be established over a longer period of time, which I guess would be 2 or 3 years. And then with Shelly, you're talking more about the motivation, right? In terms of why I'm moving. I don't really know I want to do. So with this, I don't really know what I want to do. Could it be only for fresh grads during that stage? Or could it even be for those, a lot of my friends now, midlife crisis, right? In their late 30s, early 40s, don't know what they want to do, want to change job, try and find something else. So would it apply? At which point would it apply, I think, with this motivation?
It has nothing to do with age. I think it's really, that they never really sit down and think about it. So I have, really the juniors, fresh grads, they say they don't know what they're going to do. I act as almost like a career counsel during the interview to help them to discover themselves a little bit, because I need them to know exactly what they need to do in this role if they were to come in, right? Then I also have an assistant manager role. So it comes as a role that with experience needed. And in this case, you thought maybe they have like 3-4 years of experience. They should then know what they want. But they may then come to you and give you that feeling that actually they have been in that job because they don't know what to do. So I don't think it's tagged to a certain age or at a certain position. I think it's whether you ask yourself deeply. So this is a very philosophical question that you have to reach deeply in yourself to get that. And if you do not know what you want to do, really people can sense it.
So it's like that existential, what's your why, purpose kind of a question
yes.
to
Yes.
ask yourself.
Your 5 W's and 1 H. Yes, definitely.
At any age, right?
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
And I guess if we look at the long established narrative that has been, going around for decades by now, where the general advice you get is, well, hop every few years, 2-3 years usually, you'll get a 20 to 30% pay raise. And I can attest to that too. My friends who have done that have actually gotten those kind of pay raises, sometimes as high as 50%. Whereas the ones who stay, it's usually really hard for them to get to such a high jump in that same period of time. What are your thoughts on this then? To stay or not to stay?
My favorite response is always, it depends, right? It depends. So I think from my lived experience, I highly encourage job hopping within the same organization. That's with the premise that your organization has the capacity and the enabling environment to enable that, myself as a beneficiary of that situation. So when you stay long in a company, it's really not about the years or the tenure. It's whether you've learned, you've stretched, you've contributed, and you've grown. So you can stay 10 years in the same job, or you can job hop at the same job in 10 different companies. So I think I want to shift that narrative to growth, really, whether it's within the same company or outside. But the money is a real thing. The same thing, you can get increments, better benefits, better titles within the same organization if you job hop. We don't use the word job hop. We call it internal talent mobility, and we're really trying to encourage that in the organization right now.
I like the job hopping within the organization, right? And that in itself is a mini growth mindset story for my mini series. But anyway,
It had a nicer term to it, to internal talent mobility.
Yeah, that's so wonderful. With job hopping within the organization, would you say that you could potentially be getting similar kind of pay increments as if you were to hop similar jobs to different companies?
I would say if you want 50%, that might be really quite a stretch unless your capability is at that level and you're going to another organization with a much higher pay scale. It is not entirely impossible, but it's not common. Maybe slightly less than market would be standard. And I'm going to go with why. There's a risk premium. When you go into something unknown, right, there's a risk premium to it. High risk, high rewards. And I'm not saying whether the amount is good or bad. You have to look at the whole package. Not all gains are visible on a payslip, and not all movement is progress, right? So back to your question, I think it really all depends on are you looking just purely in dollars, or are you looking for growth and really looking beyond just the next move? So my encouragement is for people to think at least the next 2-3 moves. Does this bring you where you want to go, rather than, I want a 20% increase? Because staying in the same organization, the growth, if you are talking about financial, can be like a hockey stick as you move higher up in the organization.
Mm-hmm. Let's share a few backstories on these pay increments and whether it's really true as well, because you guys have stayed, right? And when you move roles within your family or organizations, or in Shelly, in Nippon's case, what was the percentage of increments that you got per move each time? You could just give an average.
Well, I didn't even calculate. This is like, I'm not saying that money is not important, right? I still need to feed my family. It's just that it is not my primary motivation, right? I wanted to learn and contribute. So for sure, if I were to honestly ask myself, yes, if I moved out of Nippon after working for 3-4 years into something else within the same sector of construction, I'll probably get more. But I need to be an expert in certain ways, and I want to do something that I have passion and interest in. The idea of job hopping just to get the additional 20-30%, just don't justify that. It doesn't align with me. I like the idea of so-called job hopping. That's not the right term, so you're right. Unfortunately, in Nippon's case, we don't have that kind of opportunity to shift, across
Lateral kind of a movement.
But that doesn't mean you can't. So that's what I did. I actually reinvent my own role. I have to volunteer in my own ways to do things outside of my original scope. So that will help me to learn new things, contribute in different ways, and let the management see me in different angles as well. So they know that I'm versatile as an employee. I don't always have to be in that same role, which they know no matter how they groom me, I'm going to be stuck in that way. But now that they have seen the potential of this employee being able to do more than just marketing, you can do sales, you can do back-end sales operation, you can do front-end customer service. That means you could deploy her in every possible angles, in every possible departments. And then that's where the mobility, in a bigger company can happen.
Mm-hmm. So you said that if you were to move out, you'll probably get a higher pay. What's stopping you from doing that then? What's drawing you to stay within the organization?
So at that point, I really wanted to learn. And I realized that in this industry of like paints and coatings, it's not something that you can stay for like 2-3 years and you get enough technical background that you can move this, or let's not use the word technical background because that will mean it's only pertaining to product. I'm talking about the understanding of the industry. It may not be enough for you to have enough value to move yourself to another company in the same construction sector and say, hey, I can bring value on the table. So that means you need to acquire enough of the depth. And I feel that staying long will help me to achieve that. Unless I have no interest in this sector, then yes, I better move up fast, right?
What about moving to the same role in a competitor then? You would still be able to learn about the industry, continue to build on that technical knowledge that you have acquired over the years.
So I have been poached in that way across the years, and that's a definite because it's not easy to group talent in this industry. It's male dominated,
especially for female.
Yes, it's very tough, and also the area of understanding, deeply about this industry. There's a lot of things that you need to know, and sometimes it's not something that you can use ChatGPT, right? So we don't have competitors coming to approach you, but I have to ask myself, what will I gain by doing the same thing in another company, right? And then hitting back on my company, but what will that benefit me on my personal growth? When I look at it, nothing. There is nothing that will benefit me. And if you say, oh, how about you have a very nasty relationship with this current company, so you jump to the competitor side and you whack them. But hey, this is not about revenge here. We're talking about growth, my own career progression, right? So that should not be how I set out, when it comes to dealing with every step I take in my career. And I want it to be positive. So I'd rather hand out this challenge in a company, could still be in the paints and coating sector, where they need help that I know I can contribute. I think that makes sense. But most of the time when the competitors approach me, it's because they said, you have the right skill set, and I believe you will be able to help us, move us above your current company. And I'm like, wow, that feels so revengeful.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying Wise and Shine so far. I'm your host Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut, and for us to continue to do this show so that you become a tad bit wiser every week, you gotta like, share, subscribe, help us beat the algorithm, but even more importantly, if you can, comment in the comment section below, let us know your thoughts and also some questions that you would love us to answer. Yeah, now back to the show.
I'll give a perspective from a boss that I know personally, and he loves hiring from competitors. Reason being, not for revenge, but more of the onboarding is just so much faster. The person comes with the skill set, and the only thing they need to learn is a different process, right? But everything else, the industry knowledge, how to deal with things, every single thing, it's the exact same. So you can basically hire the person and they can start working as soon as next week. That's what he loves and he really keeps getting from the competitors. I love what you say, that it's not about revenge, but about personal growth. Because actually, I haven't really shared this before, but in my first job, that was what I encountered. And it got so bad because my former bosses legitimately thought that I went to a competitor to seek revenge. And I'm like, who cares about that? I was a fresh grad. I was barely 1 year in. I was struggling with a toxic boss. And I just wanted a place that I could continue to do the same thing, learn within the same industry, but not have to deal with a toxic boss. And I was also financially not being rewarded because they were withholding my pay. And I thought like my pays and bonuses, and I was like, okay, I can do the same job elsewhere and actually get paid. So I went. But the whole thing escalated. And I think that's one mindset shift that both employees and employers need to recognize, that it's not about revenge all the time. I don't think actually most employees move for revenge. That's a very childish and petty thing to do. And for the bosses as well, I think it's important that they recognize that. But that story aside, for yourself, Yinn, you have also stayed really long. 18 years is incredible. Wow, I don't know if anyone else I've met can actually boast that long tenure. What do you think has been the biggest benefit for you? So Shelly was talking about her own growth and really becoming a specialist in that sector. How about for yourself?
I think it's getting to do work that I love with people that I enjoy spending time with, and working for an organization that truly believes in contributing to society. And I'm really fully aligned with Hitachi's core values. So when your individual purpose and the company's purpose are aligned, I am in a very happy space. And the work that I do, because of my long tenure and because of the trust and cultural fluency that we've built over the years, I get to access opportunities that are not posted. These are earned, right? So when there's maybe an M&A, work of confidential nature, new organization design, typically you will want to tap on someone who has been long enough in the organization that understands what the culture mission is for the company, and also the people dynamics as well. So I think that's the biggest benefit. I think the even better benefit is I can see where things can go from here, because I fully believe in the company's vision, strategic direction, and contributing to society in all the ways that we can in whatever roles that we are in.
I can feel the passion for the company oozing out of you. I really like that. And I also hear the part about people. So when I do my interview, I had this like triangle. I will always ask any candidates I interview, I said, rank the importance, your work, the people around you at work, your boss, exactly which one is more important. If they say my work, then oh dear, because I'm a little concerned. You don't always get to do work that you can show off, that will put you in the limelight. If you say your boss, I'm concerned also, because I worry that you will only listen to what your boss says, but you have no mind on your own to in some way fight back to the boss and say, I think we can tweak a little bit of your very wonderful idea so that it benefits the company, right? But once you tell me people, I like that, because I know that you will come in well integrated with the people around you. You know that you cannot work alone. You need people to support you. So you don't come in with politics. You come in wanting to contribute in your own ways. And with that in your mindset, your work will be smoother, you'll enjoy it. And then your boss will see the effort as well through the passion, right?
So that's the model answer for those doing for interview. Choose people.
Yeah, the triangle. I use that. It's like a hidden psychology, right? I mean, it's quite easy, and I use that to hire people, and hasn't failed me as yet.
I wanna thanks Shelly for sharing. I want to pick up on what Yinn said regarding when your purpose is aligned with the company's purpose, then it's a lot easier to get things done, right? But how do you communicate and teach or train this to newcomers to understand this so that they can have an 30-year tenure, just like yourself, right?
So I think it starts early in the process, even in the selection process. I think when you select candidates, you look for like-minded people. Like we talked before, it is an interview, so we see what we get, what we see. And I think if you communicate expectations right from the get-go, and of course in the course of work, people dynamics happen. We hope that by hiring the right people with the right mindset and right values, that when people come together, you get positive team dynamics. But granted, it's not always easy.
And have you had instances where there are long stayers and they could be fairly good at the work that they do, but they still feel like they're not remunerated well, they're not getting the promotions and all that, then how do people, which I'm sure there are many in our audience, deal with such a situation? Sometimes if the top doesn't go, there's no space for you to move forward, right? So what would you give as advice to these individuals?
Especially when people stay long, there will be a feeling, because especially year-on-year increment tends to be pretty conservative, right? Because there's business costs and balancing cost of living. That said, there's actually a solution to that, back to the internal talent mobility. Of course, if you can get expansion within the role, and this is the mindset that I want to encourage people to think. Social media sometimes villainizes managers that give role expansion without pay, but sometimes the role expansion is a launch pad to justify for your next bigger growth, right? So be open-minded and know where the intent is coming from, and leverage on all these opportunities to build skills, showcase, and to what Shelly mentioned, be proactive in seeking out. Sometimes the remuneration is very stagnant because there's a bit of a mindset of, this is my job, I'm doing my job so well, I expect to be paid more. But you're already being paid for the role. So if you expect to be paid more, you need to bring more to the table. And that comes with proactiveness. I think that's you need to seek. You need to seek to be challenged and seek to grow. Seek feedback. Alignment is also very important. If you keep producing spoons when your boss is looking for knives, then there's no alignment, right? So maybe there's a simple framework for this. Assess the situation. Why is my pay stagnant, right? Am I not contributing in the right, do I have the right boss, right environment? Is the business doing well? I mean, we got to have a real look at these things. If the business is not doing well, your expectations have to be in line with affordability. Then alignment, your contributions should be in alignment with the business value. And then articulate. Number 3 is actually very important, because a lot of times Asians being very passive, right? Oh, I'm going to work super, super hard and I hope my boss realizes, I hope I get an increment. But really, sometimes not all managers are proactive about employee development and compensation. That's the reality. Sometimes we got to nudge them and say, hey, boss, I've been in this role for a while now. I'm ready for bigger challenges. I want more responsibilities. I want to add more value to the organization. And trust that process, and then the financial rewards will follow.
In your success story, because not everyone who has stayed for more than a decade or 18 years like you would have been able to rise through the ranks to actually reach C-suite. Some people stay for a really long time and they just get suppressed. They just stay stagnant. What do you think you did differently that allowed you to climb to the top versus others who didn't make it there?
If I had to say, maybe mindset, I think is very important. I just shared a recent LinkedIn post, because we are all wired to have a set of pattern of thinking. And especially in this world where everything is evolving, you actually need to have a very positive and strong mindset, growth mindset, to override that, right? So mindset to evolve ourselves, lead our teams, and lead the organization is very important. And in times of chaos and, constant change, purpose is very important as well. So I'm going to go with mindset. Second is a strong sense of self-identity. I know very firmly who I am, who I stand for, and what matters to me, right? My personal purpose, and I can share here, is to unlock potential in individuals, in teams, and in businesses. And that helps me so much, because as long as my work every day allows me to serve that purpose, I'm very happy, right? And the money just comes along, or titles just kind of come along with it. So we have mindset, we have strong sense of self-identity or purpose. Some people call that. Those are the so-called softer, but I think these are the power aspects. And then the third one would be believing in the collective we, and really caring about collective success. We more than me. I think there is a tendency to have high levels of self-orientation naturally, because I think when things are chaotic, the survival mode kicks in. So what's going to happen to me? And I think having that faith in your own capabilities and self-identity allows you to care about the collective success of everyone. And I think that has helped me and consistently showing up.
So you talk about the passive Asian earlier on. Were you that passive Asian, or were you the person who was saying, I want to go to this role. Hey, that's available. I want it. And I want a 20% increment or X percentage. Which one were you? Were you waiting to get promoted and move and offered a pay raise, or you were the one grabbing it?
In the beginning, I was that passive Asian. So my first job again was actually the same company when I graduated in 2004. Okay, you can do your math. So back then, pay was low, and I can share because it's so long ago. It was $2,000, and then I had bills to pay, student loans, and there was a lot of stress. So for a few years, I was that passive Asian until something in me like, okay, this is not going to work, right? And then this is when I had to be more open and said, I want to do more. I want to take on more. I need more money. So, and there's no shame in that as well, just to be completely transparent. So I think there's also a way of being proactive. And this is very important. It's not about coming across as entitled, right? I worked so hard. I deserve this. I deserve that. There's an art in getting better pay. And there's also patience in that and showcasing value. Say, look, and that's another episode.
Yes.
on its own. So
Producer, I think we need to get her back on another episode for this.
That's another podcast on its own, right? How do you artfully create a situation where you can get bigger opportunities for a bigger pay? I like to use this thinking, which I learned in design thinking. The product has to be desirable, feasible, and viable, right? So desirable means your qualities, your capabilities have to be desirable to the new manager or the same manager but the bigger role, that you need to show that you're a good fit. People got to want you for that role. Then feasibility is there a chair? Is there that role, right? If that's not even there, then there's no discussion. Viability is the financial part of it. Business affordability comes in, and then your expectations of the pay to the market also comes in, right? So there's nothing wrong in wanting what you want. We all have our wants, right? But then we got to match it with the business reality that we're in. And this is when I'm not against job hopping, because there are times where the business reality is unable to match your realistic expectations. And I use the word realistic. And then that's maybe a healthy look at whether an alternative is better. Of course, internal hopping within the company is better. But if you really have to go out, that's not a bad thing either.
Yeah, and I think just to remind everyone also that when you do hop to another company, there's that risk. So that risk then accounts for that extra 5 or 10%, because you might not be happy in that new role, and then you back to square one, right? You're gonna have to hop again, right? I have a question for Shelly, right? So in the 13 years that you were with Nippon, was there any point that you felt like you wanted to leave, whether it was stuck in growth, whether it was not being given the autonomy to be passively active in what you wanted to do? Were there any times, such moments? I see that smile, so probably yes. Yeah.
Well, I have juniors, I have candidates, because they also want to understand, how the company is like, why people like myself stayed for so long. And I will give them my very honest feedback. I will tell them, I want to leave every year since I joined. Every year for a different reason, right?
13
In the
times.
initial part, it was because, I'm not familiar with the industry. I'm learning something new. And when I keep asking myself the question, can coatings be sexy? And I realized that it's not like cosmetics, it's so difficult. It's not like my previous job when I was in creative and branding. I was dealing with Tiger Beer. I was dealing with like Unilever brands where it's a lot more fun. So the initial part was, it's so tough, And then when you get enough knowledge to do your job, your frustration comes with the people you work with. I feel like quitting because I feel that I'm not aligned with the people around me. I feel that I'm giving my 200% of like passion, but I'm only receiving like maybe 10% back from you. And I get all this frustration that I want to quit. But somehow it reaches a tipping point and I tell myself, I can't change the people around me. I don't always get to change my job, right? But it's in the scope of work that I'm doing. But I can work around it. And I have to ask myself, deep down, what do I want to achieve in my role that will make me happy, right? Because just now we were talking about passion and being happy. And I think that will drive you on a longer term in your career progression. So when I ask myself, am I willing to leave because I don't like, say, my new manager? Am I going to leave because, my colleagues are not willing to cooperate with me, in the campaign? Or just for that moment, I just feel like I needed more money, so I quit. I think all these are not valid. Maybe you can get frustrated for that moment, but please think a little bit deeper.
Short term, these are more short term
gains. Yeah. So after that, I was like, Let's not go too crazy about it. So every year, while I may have that thoughts, it didn't prompt me to really throw letter. And I tell myself, I will not play the punk of going to the boss and say, I'm so frustrated, I'm gonna quit. Keep me and give me like an increment. I don't like that. I don't think that's right. And it's almost like threatening people. If I want to leave, I want to leave on my terms. I want to leave because I know that I may have learned enough and contributed enough to the company, but I don't see any more further growth. Even if I were to shift even within the company into another role, it may not be something that I want to do. Then I don't want to ask my bosses to do so.
Thank you.
And Shelly, in your case, in all those 13 years, have you ever watched someone who joined after you and leapfrog ahead of you? And how did you feel or deal with that?
That's where the motivation comes in. I only want to compete with my own personal growth, not with anybody else. So if you bring somebody in younger than me, may not seem as capable or may not have the necessary or the right background, to do the job well when you first look at that person. But I always believe that if the person can be brought in by the company, by the bosses, by the management, to be placed on this particular role, there must be a reason. And I should go and find out what is this person's strength that I can learn from. I shouldn't be jealous, or I shouldn't be competitive in that sense. So there are. And ultimately, I also meet the other end where the company is very willing to bring somebody new into, say, a bigger role, a higher rank than I do. But whether they can last enough to perform is also something that is very hard to say. I've seen people come and go as well. So that's why I don't see the need to compete with anybody else. Just compete with yourself. Look in the mirror and say, okay, what can I do better today? And that's
a great response and mindset to have as well. Yinn, what about similar instances at Hitachi in the last 18 years? Did you see certain individuals leapfrogging, not to be ahead of you, but junior staff, right? And what were some of the reasons for these leapfrogs?
So there are times where you need skill sets that are not available within the company. There are times for that. And then there are also times where fresh perspectives are required to change the direction of the business. So to Shelly's point, there's a reason, sometimes maybe not well understood by people, when maybe seemingly more junior or younger people are actually brought in to drive change in the company. So like the best person to compete is with ourselves. And in the workplace, I think I know the Chinese term, I don't know English term for it, like your canvas is much larger. Don't just focus on that one chair. And I've had this conversation with people before, because we have integrations when two companies merge, and then you can see people fighting, like two people fighting for a chair. It's like, look beyond that chair. Right? Bring your own chair, create your own role like Shelly has done. So these are the encouragements that I have for people. There are reasons why people are brought in. Focus on what you can contribute, and there are roles that you can create. The good thing about this chaotic environment is that opportunities can be created by yourself.
That's a lovely perspective. So I hope you guys have actually gotten a lot of insights from this episode. I certainly have. It's very rare that we hear from people who have stayed long enough to make a case for not job hopping. I hope you guys have actually gained some of those clarity to help you decide if you should stay or leave your current organization. But before we wrap up, I have just one last question for the both of you. If our audience wanted to find you, where should they connect with you guys?
Well, find me on LinkedIn.
Same. We're connected. You can connect with us.
LinkedIn is the new Facebook, right? That's for our era. So that's all for today's episode of Wise and Shine. We hope that you have enjoyed it. If you want to hear anything else from our guests, leave a comment in the box below. And if not,
if you're not already following The Financial Coconut, and if you want to get updates on new episodes that are launched, go to www.thefinancialcoconut.com and leave your email address there.
So that's all for today's episode of Wise and Shine. We hope that you have gotten great insights on whether to leave or stay. And if not, we'll see you on the next episode. Bye!
Take care. Bye-bye.